Hello everyone, welcome back to Abiotic Factor. I wanted to make this video because I am seeing a lot of misinformation and also missing information online in the community. A lot of this information is just kind of like gate kept behind Steam forums, which are an awful cesspool that I don't encourage anyone to go down into, and just like really obscure places like on subreddits or whatever. So I wanted to kind of make a YouTube video acting as a kind of compilation for all of these different leveling tips and tricks, with the addition of the new update bringing a much needed way to actively and efficiently farm your medical XP, which we will talk about later, obviously. I figured now should be, I think every single skill in the game should have a relatively efficient method of leveling it up as quickly as possible. So medical was kind of the last thing that we were all kind of struggling with. So now that we have a way to power level medical really easily, there's no better time to get a maxed character out for Abiotic Factor. Now, before we begin, I want to cover the topic of cheating, and I'm going to put that in quotes. My stance on cheating is this: if it's not an online competitive game and you're not trying to ruin other people's experiences on purpose, cheat away. I don't give a fuck. So, in Abiotic Factor, the other reason I really don't give a shit about cheating in Abiotic Factor is because there are 0 achievements on Steam that are tied to your skill levels. Literally none. So you having a maxed out character means nothing besides your character just feeling stronger and having more utility perks and stuff like that. I will leave a link to save editing in the description because I have save edited a couple times on this save file. I can't find a way to actually edit XP values on the save file. It must be stored on the server information, which I can't really access in my app data folder. So it's not stored locally to the actual player save file. I don't know where the XP would ever be stored. It must be stored on the server because I can't access it on the actual save file using the method that I'm going to leave in the description down below. So the only other way that I could possibly see a way to like edit these values is to use a cheat engine. And I've had mixed results with a cheat engine in the past. And I can't seem to find a version of cheat engine in the past couple of years that doesn't flag massive malware alerts on Windows Defender whenever I install it. So I haven't used cheat engine in like well over half a decade. So if anybody down in the comments has used cheat engine in Abiotic Factor and you are able to actually successfully edit your XP values, please let me know, and I will go ahead and update the description with that information. But otherwise, let's go ahead and talk about the items that you can use and the other methods that you can use to make getting XP easier. So, when you make your character in Abiotic Factor, there is a trait that you can pick called Wrinkly Brain Meat. This will give you 20% extra XP globally across every skill no matter what. So it'll make every skill able to be learned 20% faster, which is incredible if this is taking a very long time. It's not as good as of a trait as like Fanny Pack, but if you can somehow fit it into your character build, go ahead and pick Wrinkly Brain Meat. It is probably the second best trait that you can pick as a, on a fresh character. If you've already made a character, but you're not that far into the game yet, and you're okay resetting your skills all the way down to level 3, there is a, what is the actual proper term in Abiotic Factor? I want to call them SCPs, but there's an IS in Abiotic Factor that is right outside the Myco Fields in Cascade Laboratory. And if you walk through the device, it will basically reset your character. All the skills will be reset down to level 3, and it will allow you to pick up new traits. So you'll be able to pick up Fanny Pack, you'll be able to pick up Wrinkly Brain Meat, or whatever. Don't do this if your character is already like maxed out on a couple skills. You're probably just better off just biting the bullet and moving on and just playing without Wrinkly Brain Meat. But if you are going to make a new character, or you're willing to use the fucking amnesia machine, the Wrinkly Brain Meat is able to be chosen, and it's a pretty good perk. In addition, you also have access to the sandbox settings menu for the game. This has all sorts of really useful settings that you can modify to make the game easier or harder, and one of those settings is XP gain rate. This is normally at a 1.0 modifier. If you drag it down below 1, it will basically reduce the amount of XP that players will gain on the server. But the value, the slider is able to be raised all the way up to a 3 times multiplier. I haven't done this myself. I leveled up all my skills legitimately using the 1.0 multiplier, but If you want to make it easier for yourself and you're okay with it taking even less time, you're able to jack up this value all the way up to a 3 times multiplier to make this entire process literally a third of the time, which is kind of nice. As for the 2 trinkets that are worth talking about, one is Kylie. I'm not going to spoil Kylie's questline for you, but you get her in Hydra Plant, and you're able to wear her as a trinket, and she will increase your XP that you get globally by, I think, 10% or 15%. It's one of the two. The other trinket worth talking about is the Pet Rock. Now, the Pet Rock can be gained in a hidden area up above in the balcony, in the tram connecting Cascade to Manufacturing West whenever you blow through the particle accelerator in Manufacturing West. That tram area, it's right next to where you meet Abe and Janet experimenting on the first Electropest. It's right next to that section. You usually need a couple jump pads to get up there, but in there is a trinket called a Pet Rock. The Pet Rock will increase the amount of XP you gain for your lowest skill by, I want to say, another 10-15%, right? So for me, my lowest skill right now is medical, right? So that would give my medical skill a 15% increase in gain, which can be really, really handy. In addition to the passive permanent effects on the trinkets, you're also able to get temporary effects from mostly soups, but other food items can also give you XP bonuses to very specific skills. So a good example of this is the roasted nori sheet, which is, I think, off the top of my head, the only non-soup item that gives you an XP bonus, and it gives you an XP bonus to fishing, right? As we go through and we talk about each individual skill, if there is a corresponding food item, which I believe there's one for every single skill in the game, I will leave it on screen. I do not know them off the top of my head. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. But I will leave it on screen. That way you can use that food to make the leveling process easier for yourself. There's probably one last food that I should probably discuss. If you consume a brain that you can get from basically salvaging some of the human skulls that you find around the facility, if you consume a human brain, it will give you an XP bonus for a short period of time. However, it will also make you uncontrollably sick. Yeah, not worth doing this, by the way. I'll go ahead and give you some free advice. Do not be eating human brains. The bonus lasts a few minutes at best, and it also makes you vomit out all of your food and all of your thirst. And it's just not worth it. Trust me. It's not necessary, and it's not worth it. Really, don't be relying on human brains. Okay? All right. Without further ado, all of our bases should be covered. Let's go ahead and get started. Sprinting. This is a very, very important skill. You should level this up naturally as you sprint throughout the facility. However, if you'd like to power level it faster, you are able to craft yourself an exercise bike, and you're able to pedal the exercise bike in order to get XP at a rapid rate. However, this has a cooldown, and after a few minutes of spending time on the bike, you will get a debuff called lactic acid (legs), and that will prevent you from getting any more XP until it wears off. So, again, typically you will level this up as you just play the game. This should be one of the first skills that you have maxed out. You should be sprinting everywhere. The really nice thing about sprinting is that every level in sprinting doesn't just increase your sprinting speed, it also increases your max stamina and your stamina regeneration. So, very convenient for any action that requires stamina, like blocking or swinging melee weapons or jumping, right? Very, very useful skill. You should max this out naturally, almost first, if not. I think this was my second skill that I maxed out basically. So yeah, not very hard to do. You should have it maxed out if you're playing naturally for long enough. Strength. Strength is also very important. Inventory management and Abiotic factor is a critical component of the game. Every level of strength increases your max carry weight by I think 2 or whatever. Very, very useful skill. You get XP in a couple different ways. One, if your pack is full and you are basically on the encumbrance bar, if you're between yellow and red, you should be getting XP for a certain amount of distance that you walk or run in the game, essentially. The key is you want to get your weight, if you're trying to train this, obviously, you want to get your weight as high as possible without crossing over into the red zone. If it's like magenta or like what is it, like orange or whatever, you're fine, right? If you're super weight, you're fine. But if you're over encumbered and you cross over into the red zone, you will not get any XP for walking and traveling. So you want to make sure that the heaviest you are is that like sweet spot, like orange zone towards the end of the bar. The other way to level up strength is to shake vending machines. You unlock that at level 5, basically, in the strength tree. It's not a bad way to do it. It's really easy to like animation cancel whenever you're shaking vending machines. Pretty fast, actually. The third way to level up your strength is to use the bench press. So the bench press functions similar to the exercise bike in that it will rapidly increase your strength XP, but then you will get a debuff that you'll need to basically let fall off before you can resume using the bench press. So yeah, strength, one of the most, I think strength was my first skill that I maxed out, because I power leveled it on purpose, basically because I wanted to max out my carrying capacity. So very useful skill. This should, again, like sprinting, this should get maxed out at some point during the game. Unless you're speed running, this should get maxed out at some point during the game. Especially if you're using melee weapons or you're blocking or whatever. You're carrying around a lot of weight and you're wearing heavy armor. This should get maxed out. Throwing, a very underutilized skill for good reason. Throwing weapons usually suck in this game. So throwing is an interesting skill because it will basically increases the amount of velocity that your thrown objects are thrown at, and their damage, obviously. But there's a couple of really interesting perks under throwing, which makes it kind of critical to level up if you want to get into kind of the end game and do it efficiently. Unfortunately, throwing is a bit of a pain in the ass to level up if you're doing it manually. So you'll get XP for throwing every time that you land throwing hits, based on the damage of the weapon that you throw, but also based on the distance between you and your target that you hit. So if you're able to land your throwing hits from a really, really far away distance, you will skyrocket the amount of XP that you're getting. However, there is a really efficient way to level this up, if a bit tedious, and that is the net exploit. So when you have at least 2 of the thrown nets in your hand, you're able to craft these really, really early on. I think that they're just like cloth scraps, basically. They're essentially ammo for the net gun, but you're able to mainly throw them in order to tangle medium and small enemies. But if you have at least 2 in your hand, and this is how the exploit works, craft 2 of these guys, go into a corner, face the wall, crouch down, and look down at the floor. And then you want to either create a macro or do it manually yourself, where you basically click to throw the net, and then you want to spam the E button to pick it up as soon as it hits the floor. And that's the reason why you want to have 2 of those nets, is that the second net stops you from having to reset your hands, basically. So as long as you have enough nets in your hand, as you throw them and spam the E button and spam clicking and spamming the E button, you will get XP every time that you throw or pick up the nets, I think. And that's how you power level it, essentially. It may be tedious, but it does work, and it only took me a few hours to get it maxed out. The alternative is to, again, literally just use the throwing tools as they're intended and hit enemies with them. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it is important to keep in mind that you will get an XP bonus based on the damage of the tool and also based on the distance between you and the target. So keep that in mind. Sneaking. Sneaking has some of the best perks in the entire game, in my opinion. There's one perk that gives you a chance to just avoid damage whenever enemies hit you, which is ridiculous. There's another perk that makes it so that all of your attacks on unaware enemies are guaranteed to be sneak attacks, even if you're not crouching. So sneaking quickly becomes a very necessary component for end game combat and stuff like that. It's very useful to level up sneaking if you can. Now, as far as leveling it up, you have a couple options, obviously. Couple of quote-unquote exploits for leveling up sneak. Obviously, the easiest way to level up sneak is just you get XP for just sneaking past enemies. If an enemy is unaware of your presence and you are crouched, you will get sneaking XP as they are in a radius around you, essentially. You actually get more XP if the enemy is patrolling rather than just standing still. So this comes into play with the first exploit, which is the carbuncle exploit. There are carbuncles throughout the game, and the carbuncles can't move, and also they're really easy to sneak by. So what you can do is sneak next to a carbuncle and just sit there, and you'll get a very small amount of sneaking XP over time, essentially. This is not a practical way to level it up, because this would take you tens of hours, I think, to do it. I think I did the math, and it would take me like 10 to 15 hours of doing that, and that requires you to like eat food, go to the bathroom, sleep. Like, you have needs in Abiotic Factor, right? So it's not very convenient. The second and arguably more effective way is to wait until you have access to the Crystallisk armor. The Crystallisk armor in Abiotic Factor has a special set bonus where if you're crouched and or just moving slowly, you have basically invisibility, and enemies really struggle to be able to detect you. They can still detect you if you bump into them, or they bump into you, obviously. But visually, you're basically invisible, right? What I did, and a couple of people have differing opinions on the best monster to the best enemy to basically farm sneaking on. I've heard people say Crystallisks give you a bunch, and they even have like specified areas for it. What I did was I went to Flat Hill, and I went in front of the bank, in front of the second part of the zone, and there's a composer outside of the bank that wanders up and down the street. Now, the first composer of the area over in front of the like town hall or general hall or whatever the hell it is, his patrol path is too long. So you will get cut off where like he basically is outside of your patrol path for a couple seconds, and you're not getting XP during that time. But the second composer, I found a sweet spot where I'm able to get XP the entire patrol path. And so I basically just equipped the Crystallisk armor, and I sat there and I idled as close as possible to the composer without being inside of their patrol path and having them bump into me, basically is what I did, right? And I went from like level like 9 in sneaking to 20 in about 2.5 hours. So it was a really, really fast way to do it. And I only went back to base like twice, basically. I went to base, I went to the bathroom, I slept, I ate food and water, and then I drank, and then I went back to farming in Flat Hill, basically. And it was really, really simple and very, very effective, and I had it done in just a couple of hours. So yeah, sneaking is not that hard to level up. If you're doing a lot of sneaking, you should be getting a lot of XP from like sneak attacks and that kind of thing. If you're playing a sneak build and you're playing like in melee or even in range with sneak attacks or whatever, you do get a big burst of sneaking XP whenever you land a sneak attack. So that can be a viable way to level it up naturally if you don't want to, exploit glitch or whatever. But yeah, that's sneaking. Blunt melee damage. The blunt skill is like the sharp skill, a bit of a pain in the ass to level up. The only way to get XP for blunt melee is to either hit enemies with a blunt weapon or hit and break the breakables throughout the game with a blunt weapon. Now, this won't pertain to furniture. Do not go around just breaking furniture with any melee weapons. But if you hover over an object and it has that like symbol on it as you hover over it, that is considered a breakable. This pertains to like printers, monitors, the computers that you find under desks and stuff like that. Those are all breakables, right? So hitting those and also hitting enemies obviously will give you melee XP for whatever weapon that you're using, sharp or blunt. Now, for leveling up your melee skills, there are two avenues of thought. One is to use really hard-hitting, slow weapons to basically do sneak attacks on enemies, to one-tap them. This has the byproduct of also leveling up your sneak later on, which is going to be nice. The other avenue is to use a very low damage, fast-hitting melee weapon in order to get as much damage and hits out on an enemy before you kill them. Blunt is a little bit worse than sharp at this, but there are still some really good options for blunt, especially with the new update adding in a few new blunt weapons. If you are in the early stages of the game, if you somehow pick security officer for your start, you will be given a basic baton, which is pretty fast hitting, but not very much damage. Once you reach the security sector, you'll also be able to find security batons, and these are, I believe, identical to the basic baton. They will swing mediumly fast, but they also don't deal a whole lot of damage. They're pretty good for farming up blunt XP. The issue is if you're facing endgame enemies, they will often not get staggered because you're not doing enough damage, and they will often just like fight you back. So you may have issues with that. However, the new update also introduced a few new blunt weapons, 2 of which are really, really viable for leveling up your XP quickly. One is the Acid Mace, which will be dealing a fair chunk of acid damage. However, this thing needs to be filled up with radioactive waste, which is kind of a pain in the ass. The other one is the Plasma Flail, which is also really, really good and will also burn enemies, which is nice. The issue with this one is that it will basically take a laser charge, and it also doesn't hold that much charge. I don't know whether developers made this thing basically run out of charge in like 30 hits, but this thing does not hold very much in the way of charge, and you will need to be recharging this thing pretty frequently. So those weapons are going to be much better at leveling up blunt because they swing really fast, and they're also not going to be one-shotting enemies. These are going to be far better options than using like really heavy 2-hitting weapons because they're really slow, and it doesn't really lend itself well to getting a lot of XP in combat. However, melee is still going to be really, really slow to level up, so make sure this is probably one of the only skills that I heavily recommend you using the proper soup. Now, the soup in question, I know off the top of my head because I made and ate so damn much of it. It is called the Meaty Stew, and it is made by using all 3 of the different types of raw meat that you get from pests and peccaries, right? So I heavily recommend that you cook up a bunch of this shit and you use this whenever you're leveling up your blunt and your sharp melee XP. It will make the process significantly easier. Unfortunately, there's not really any way to like exploit this kind of thing. I recommend just going around to different portal worlds and going around the facility and breaking every breakable you can with melee weapons, and also hitting enemies, again, with as many XP bonuses as you possibly can. Melee skills are just going to take probably the longest in the game to level up, appropriately. Sharp damage. Similar to blunt, you just get XP for sharp by basically dealing damage with melee weapons and also hitting breakables with melee weapons. However, sharp is a fair bit easier to level up because the weapons typically just swing faster in general, which lends itself better to getting XP quicker. But sharp has the unique advantage of the ornate daggers. These are crafted post-Praetorium. You will need 2 of the offhand daggers that you get out of the assassins in order to craft these. But once you do, these guys are tremendously effective at gathering sharp XP. They swing so fast, and most enemies get stun locked because you're swinging so fast and you're dealing a decent amount of damage. So you're able to just like shred through people relatively well while also getting a crap load of XP. And because you swing so fast, you also shred through breakables, and because it is considered a sharp weapon, you can also use this to butcher bodies. Now, you will not get XP for butchering bodies, but still, if you need to butcher bodies as you're collecting shit around the facility, you don't have to swap to your fucking vacuum. You don't have to swap to an offhand sharp weapon like you would normally have to do if you're using ranged or blunt weaponry. You can just keep using the ornate daggers to cut up bodies too. It's really convenient and really efficient. It maybe took me like 2-3 hours to max out the sharp skill. So yeah, my recommendation is to use the ornate daggers. It makes the process significantly easier, but you can also use things like the laser katana, the hard light saber. The hard light spear is also pretty good. A lot of the spears in the game swing pretty fast. So yeah, the sharp is way easier to level up than blunt, unfortunately. So, accuracy. Accuracy really sucks to level up. You just have to land hits with ranged weapons, basically. It's rough. In the early game, when your accuracy is low, you're able to see the like laser dot. It's not like an actual laser dot, but you can see the dot of your like reticle as you have a ranged weapon equipped. And an unskilled marksman, like somebody who has accuracy that is pretty low, it's abysmal. Like, trying to land hits with a ranged weapon in the early game is fucking ridiculous. It's pretty difficult. So I recommend that you basically use like a crossbow or something until the mid game, when you're able to then transition into like actual like bullets and other ranged weaponry. Obviously, similar to melee, you will get XP based on every hit that you land. So faster hitting weapons will give you more XP. Things like the deatomizer, the SMG, any automatic weapons, that kind of thing, you will level up much, much quicker. However, because you're leveling up your accuracy and it's not maxed yet, your bullet spread is going to be pretty severe. So you're really going to want to be using these weapons relatively close to enemies until you get really, really good at landing your hits. So yeah, accuracy is just one of those things where it's one of those things that you're gonna level it up naturally by using ranged weapons. I think most players prefer ranged weapons over melee. So this should be leveled up, naturally over time. And unlike the melee weapons, you do have a lot of great options for fast hitting, low damage weapons. Like again, the deatomizer, the 9mm SMG, the quill rifle is also a fantastic ranged weapon. You have options. So range should not be very difficult to level up. Reloading. Now we can finally get back to the exploits. So reloading is, again, similar to accuracy. In the early stages before you have this skill leveled up, your reloads are going to be abysmally slow. Trying to reload in the middle of combat with 3 reloading skill is just horrible. It's not pleasant. So the recommendation that I have for reloading is that you power level it, and you can do this really, really easy using an exploit. So to get XP, all you have to do is just reload a weapon. However, you get the reloading XP regardless of whether or not you're actually using the ammo that you're firing. So what this means is that you can use a weapon that has a swappable ammo type like the disc launcher or any of the crossbows, right? And then, if you have more than one ammo type in your inventory, you can hold down the reload key. On PC, it's R. You hold down the reload key, and you'll bring up a spiral wheel, a radial wheel. And you can then select a different type of ammo. So what I did, I basically just made a macro on my keyboard that basically holds down the R key, swaps the ammo, and then holds down the R key and then swaps to the other ammo. And you'll get XP every single time that you do this. Now, if you didn't want to cheat and use a macro, you can also just manually reload while you're fucking around and waiting for things to cook or waiting for things to craft or whatever. Like if you're waiting on your friends to get back from taking a shit, you can sit there in your base and just sit there and reload your crossbow back and forth over and over again. So yeah, the really nice thing about this is that you should level up reloading as you are leveling up your accuracy, because ranged weapons will require you to reload. Most of them, at least the non-charged ones like the deatomizer will require you to reload properly, like ammo, like crossbows and guns and stuff like that. So you will naturally level up your reloading skill as your accuracy goes up. I had my reloading maxed out way before my accuracy was. Primarily because I was using the exploit, but still. But yeah, reloading should be really easy to level up if you just sit there and use the exploit that I mentioned, where you can just, any weapon that has more than one ammo type in the game, you can totally do that for. Fortitude. Probably one of the most useful skills in the game. In Abiotic Factor, health regenerates so slowly that the Fortitude perks that give you extra regeneration are borderline vital for sustained combat encounters, as well as Fortitude also giving you flat health every time that you level it up. So Fortitude is really important to level it up, to level up. Unfortunately, the only way to level up Fortitude is to take or block damage. So you can sit there like a tank and have your shield out and block hits or whatever to get some Fortitude XP, or you can also just take damage. Those are kind of the two. Those are kind of the two methods to do it. If you wanted to exploit this, there's a couple ways to do it. I had my Fortitude maxed out really early on in the game as soon as I unlocked a Chopinator, because what I basically did was create a jigsaw-like kill box room where I put a bed down, slept in it to basically reset my spawn point, and then I set up a Chopinator to basically cut me at the ankles as soon as I stood up on my bed. So what would happen is I would get killed, and then I would immediately respawn, and then I would get killed again by the Chopinator, basically chopping at me at my respawn point. It's a little tricky to pull off. It's kind of difficult to kind of get the Chopinator, in the correct position to do it. But it is possible, and I did do it it took me a couple hours to do it, basically, but it is possible to do it. The other way to do it is later on whenever you get through Cascade Laboratories and you unlock lasers. As soon as you have access to any lasers, you're able to put down a laser emitter and stand between you and the laser, and you'll take a very minute amount of damage over time, basically. This is way safer than using the Chopinator and just basically death looping yourself. It's also easier to set up if you wanted to death loop yourself using lasers over a bed. because the Chopinators are difficult to set up over a bed, but the lasers are not. You can you're able to set them up on walls and shit, right? So lasers, if you're that far enough in the game, are a very effective option for basically exploiting Fortitude XP. But otherwise, you should get Fortitude leveled up if you're playing in melee combat and you're blocking stuff and that kind of thing. You should get Fortitude relatively maxed out. So, crafting, one of the most important skills that you can level up in Abiotic Factor. This is a game about crafting, after all. The perks are also absolutely insane. The level 20 perk for crafting is very, very useful for, you know, efficiency and resource management. Also, it's worth pointing out that every single level in crafting decreases crafting time by a flat amount. It also gives you a chance to not consume durability whenever you use durability on an item. So, very useful to level up crafting. Now, you get this for crafting items. The more you craft, obviously, the more XP you get for it. But there are a couple ways to cheese this. The way that I did it was I made a macro where you basically make plastic bottles and then you salvage the plastic bottles back into their base components, and then you just repeat the process. Because a plastic bottle takes one plastic scrap, and when you salvage it, you get one plastic scrap back. I think it's the only item in the game where you can do that, where you literally get back all the materials used to make it. It's really easy to do it that way. If you want to expedite the process, you can even, instead of having to salvage it, you're able to instead drop them at your feet or fill your inventory with them, and then just anything that you craft past that will be dropped at your feet automatically. And if you stand over one of the auto salvager machines, it will automatically break down the bottles back into plastic, and you're able to literally just repeat the process until you're out of plastic scraps. Then grab it all out of the hopper, and then repeat the process basically. That would be a way easier solution than what I did. But yeah, that's crafting. Super easy to level up. This was probably going to be one of the first skills that you max out if you're not sprinting everywhere, basically. You should have crafting maxed out relatively quickly, because you should be doing a lot of crafting in Abiotic Factor, especially if you're playing alone. So, construction. You get XP for construction whenever you craft anything. Basically build it with a screwdriver or the equivalent tool that you upgrade. You also get construction XP for dismantling furniture that you find around the facility and in portal worlds. So the best way to level this up is to just go around dismantling everything. You do get a pretty beefy amount of XP for just doing that. But if you wanted to cheese it, obviously this is the easiest one to exploit. You basically just construct something and then dismantle it using a screwdriver, basically. And so, or you package it up, basically. So what this means is pick a furniture item, whether it's a chair, a table, a crate, doesn't really matter. Look down at your feet, and then aim upwards enough so that you are able to build it, and then craft it, and then hold down F to package it up, and then pick it up and repeat the process. You will get XP every single time that you finish the crafting, or you finish the construction. So construction should be relatively easy to level up, basically. It's one of the easiest ones to exploit if you know what you're doing. You also will naturally get it leveled up if you're like me and you love emptying out the facility. Yeah, you will get this leveled pretty quickly. First aid. This is a pretty important skill if you're playing with other people. It's usually more effective if other people apply medical stuff to you rather than if you apply it to yourself. So this is more of a like group party kind of thing, but there are a couple of perks inside of the medical skill that are relevant to you. So it is important for first aid to be leveled up. Also, keep in mind that every skill level increases the amount of health that you get back, which is particularly important for like the new restorative tinctures and also for the green syringes. Now, leveling up medical is a bit of a pain in the ass. It actually is my lowest skill right now. And the reason for that is simple. I rarely play the doctor in team play, and I rarely get hurt because I'm wearing heavy armor and I'm really not taking that much damage, and my fortitude is maxed out, so I'm regenerating so fast, and I'm also not the type of player to leap off of buildings, so I rarely break my leg, and it's a whole thing. So my medical skill is just really, really low. And for a really long time, it's been a pain in the ass to level up your first aid skill. However, this is the reason I wanted to make this video, is because there is a new way to power level up your medical skill. using the new pets in the Cosmic Companions update. So I wanted to make this video specifically because of the medical section, but I decided to just make a section for every leveling skill. So you get medical XP whenever you craft medical items, but it's a very, very little amount. But you also get it for using the medical items. Now, when you use them on yourself, you get you get some XP, but you get way more XP when you use them on other people. It feels like a 2 or even a 3 times bonus, like a 2 or 3 times modifier, whenever you use medical items on another player. So, for a long time, there were only a couple of ways to grind this out. One is to just make a bunch of splints, which are relatively cheap, and you're gonna have these materials in droves. And you just basically jump off of a ledge, break your leg, and then splint it up, and then do it over and over again until both your legs are broken, and you have to wait a couple minutes for them to heal, and then you just repeat the process. That's insanely slow and would take you hours, if not, it would take you tens of hours to do that shit. Because you get such little medical XP for doing that, it's rough. You can also, similar to leveling up your Fortitude, stand at a laser or stand at a chopinator and inject yourself with syringes. I can't find a way to reliably bleed myself, especially because my Fortitude is so high. So bandages can't be used if you're not bleeding, and therefore that's a whole thing. So for a while, the meta to basically level this up was to have a friend, have another player with you, have them join your server, and then damage them, and then just basically patch them up. But, and I didn't know this when I was making the last video that I made for Abiotic Factor, the one talking about pets. You can actually use medical items on a pet. One of my friends messaged me after he saw the video and was like, hey, are you able to use medical items on pets? And in my head, it was like a fucking epiphany. I was like, I didn't even think about that. I don't know why it didn't even cross my mind to literally try to use medical items on a pet. So I did, and it fucking works. You can 100% inject green syringes into a pet if they have any damage missing. And it 100% gives them a boost of health and also gives them a regeneration buff, I think. I noticed that the pet's health is regenerating faster. So if you want to power level medical like I am right now, what you can do is essentially take your pet, and I know this is going to kind of piss off some of the animal rights activists out there, but you can take one of your pets and you can put them into a laser and have them take damage, and then you can just sit there and inject gallons of healing syringes into their bodies in order to power level up your medical skill. So this is probably going to be the new meta to level up your medical for as long as it's going to be in the game. I don't know if the developers are going to nerf this or patch this or just remove it entirely. I, for some reason, didn't even think about trying to inject syringes into my pets. It does also make the pets significantly better than I thought that they were, because if the pets die too easily, you're able to inject them to kind of get them back up into the running. So yeah, this is gonna be the best way to level up your medical for right now. Cooking. Cooking is one of the most important skills in the game. Every 5 levels in your cooking skill, you will get an upgrade to the recipes that you are cooking, making them go from like, I think like, I believe the tiers are like decent into beautifully crafted into expert, I think is at level 20. I know for a fact that at level 20 it's expert. So if you have any foods that are quote unquote expertly crafted, that means that they were crafted by a level 20 person. And cooking is really important because, needs in Abiotic Factor can't be really circumvented in many ways. So you are always going to have to eat and drink, and therefore the food is always going to be relevant. So it's very important if you're playing at a party to have somebody dedicated to cooking, because it's very important to keep everybody fed. Now, the best way to level up cooking is actually, a lot of people think that it's better to go for like soups or baking goods or whatever, but it's actually not. It's not only more resource efficient to literally just grill meat, but it's also faster, and you're able to cook meat quicker and in a bigger batch than you could with ovens, right? Ovens take up a power slot. You have to fuel them with electricity. Whereas, and soups require a pot, and you have to then eat the soups out of the pot. There's no way to get the soups out of a pot, and then unless you're gonna pour it on the floor, which is a waste of fucking food. But if all you're doing is taking the like peccary pork chops and the raw pest meat and all the raw meat that you get from killing and butchering animals in this game, if you just take that and basically saute it in a pan, basically, it's way more efficient, and you'll level up your cooking way faster. So that's my recommendation, is that go out and kill stuff, butcher the animals, and then cook the food. Another great way to do this is to fish. Whenever you butcher a fish, you will get raw meat fillets out of the fish. Those fillets can not only be used in certain recipes, but they can also be just grilled on they can also just be grilled in a frying pan. So what you can very easily do is just set up, a couple of frying pan stations. I'm using the big ones that have 4 slots. I have 2 of them, so I have 8 total. And you go and you just cook all the stuff. Keep in mind also, not only are you able to grill meat slabs, and you're also able to grill, the raw fish fillets. You're also able to grill eggs, and eggs are ubiquitous. I have so many fucking eggs. I barely use eggs for any recipes, so just sitting there and frying eggs is a really good way to use all those eggs. And then with a new pet system, you're able to feed them to your pets in order to level them up. So yeah, if you have freezers unlocked, there's no reason for you not to be like grilling all of your meat basically. Yes, you do want to hang on to some of the meat for, there's reasons to hang on to the meat obviously. But if you're leveling up your cooking and you want to do it really, really quickly, if you have a surplus of like raw meat, go ahead and grill it up. It's way faster than like doing soups and baking goods and stuff like that. Or if you're like me and you're able to multitask in a kitchen, do them all. Set up a bunch of soups, set up a bunch of ovens. I have 2 ovens in my kitchen. Set up 2 of the ovens because the ovens take fucking forever. And then while the ovens and the soups are cooking, then you can sit there and grill up a bunch of stuff on the frying pans, right? It's a great way to just basically power level up all your cooking. Agriculture. This basically affects how fast plants grow and how much water that your plants will use while they grow. So there's a couple ways to level this up, and it's going to be really difficult in the early game. Whenever you get around Cascade Labs and the Hydro Plant, then the end game options begin opening up to you. Specifically, like the large garden plots are pretty important. But even before then, you're able to very easily power level this. So there's 2 ways to get agriculture XP. One is to grow plants. You get XP from putting seeds down into a garden plot and growing plants basically, and you will get a big burst of XP every growth stage. So not only are you getting XP when you're harvesting the plants, which is the other way to get XP, but you're also getting XP whenever you're growing the plants as they're going through all 5 of their growth stages. Then you harvest them at growth stage 5, it goes back down to 4, and then a certain amount of time later it grows back to 5 and you can harvest it again. You do get XP for just harvesting stuff, right? Now, most of the harvestable plants in the game are either antivirus wheat or Xanthurium rice. There are a couple of nodes in the game that will give you the rice, basically. But most of the harvestable plant nodes throughout the game are antivirus wheat, and there are a lot of them. Primarily, there are a couple in the first portal world that you visit, Far Garden. There is a fair amount of them in some of the other portal worlds too, but a big burst of the antivirus wheat also comes from the peccary pens in the Cascade Laboratories area. I forget the actual area. I will leave it on screen basically. But there's a bunch of peccaries down there. This is also where you probably first encounter peccary sows and the alpha peccaries if you get lucky with a spawn down there. But there's like 20-ish antivirus wheat nodes in this area, and it regrows every couple of days. So if you want to get a big burst of agriculture XP, you can head over here and grab all the wheat. And the wheat is tremendously useful. You use wheat for everything. You use it for healing syringes. You use it for food. You use it for all sorts of shit. So it's important to stockpile the wheat, basically. The other way to power level your agriculture is to basically, as I said earlier, grow plants, and when you first harvest the plant, delete the plant and regrow it. Because you will get a massive influx of XP for agriculture as the plant progresses throughout the stages. You get a really big burst as it goes through every single growth stage. So what you can do, instead of having to sit there and harvest it every day or two, remove the plant and replant it and let it grow through all 5 of its stages again. That way you're autonomously growing, getting a bunch of agriculture XP. So those are the two best ways to basically power level agriculture. Fishing, last but not least, fishing. Fishing is really gimmicky, and it has one of the more tricky mini games I've seen for fishing in any video game, basically. A lot of players are probably confused about how the fishing works. I know for a fact it took me a few minutes to figure out how to even fish, because the game does not fucking explain it to you at all, by the way. But essentially, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a tutorial rundown. When you cast into the water, you will wait a couple of seconds and then you will get a bite. And when you bite, your bobber will move in a certain direction. And your goal is to use the WSAD keys to basically move in the opposite direction. So if the bobber moves to the right, you want to pull to the left. If the bobber goes up, you want to pull down, right? Do keep in mind that the bobber can move in diagonal directions. The bobber can move top left, in which case you want to hit S and D on your keyboard in order to pull it down and to the right. So that's how the fishing minigame works. And after you do a quote-unquote round of this, the fish or whatever's on your bobber will tire and they will stop fighting you. And at that point, you're able to then hold down the left mouse button or the interact key if you're on console to reel the fish in. Now, you know it's a fish if you go to reel it in after the first round, and it starts fighting again. If it's junk that you're trying to catch, and you basically hook junk, it will not fight you. So you know immediately if you were reeling in after the first round and it's not fighting you anymore, that it is not a fish. It's going to be junk. If it fights you again, it's going to be a fish, and fish will fight you for 3 rounds. Regardless of your fishing skill, regardless of anything else, the fish will always try to fight you in 3 rounds, and then it will let you catch it, basically. There are obviously, as your fishing skill goes up and you're wearing better gear for fishing or whatever, you're able to decrease the amount of time that any of the rounds take, so you'll ultimately, catch fish faster. But fish will always fight you for 3 rounds, and then you can catch them, basically. So that's how fishing works. And if you're wearing all the gear, fishing is one of those skills where as you level it up, it gets easier and easier. It's similar to like agriculture in that respect. But at level 5, you get the tackle box recipe. And the tackle box is an item that you can craft where if you sit down on it, the fish will fight you for a lot less time during rounds. It makes each quote unquote round a lot quicker. So you want to be sitting in a tackle box whenever you're trying to catch fish as quick as possible. At level 3, you will also be able to see bubbles in any body of water, and if you cast into that body of water, you are guaranteed to get fish out of that quote unquote school. Basically, you will not catch junk out of that school. You will catch fish. I've seen the spots last anywhere between 1 and 3 catches. It may last longer. I don't know, but you'll at least get 1 fish out of that fishing spot. At level 3, you're also able to craft fishing traps. Fishing traps do not give you XP when you harvest fish. You only want to use fishing traps if you're trying to grind fish and get as many fish as possible for cooking or resource purposes. You do not want to be using fishing traps if you're trying to level up your fishing. You should still be using fishing traps, obviously. You want to be using fishing traps to get more fish because you can do more stuff with them. But don't rely on them for XP. Not going to work. At level 10, you'll unlock the Lucky Fishing Hat and the Mud Waders. The Mud Waders are a piece of gear that you can equip. I think it goes into your chest slot, and it makes you never catch fish. You'll only catch junk. Some people think that, at first glance, you may think that's a terrible piece of gear. Why would I ever wear that? There are some bodies of water that give you really useful junk. There are a ton of different bodies of water in the game, and you can get some really good shit out of them. So do not dismiss the mud waders. They can be really handy for like target farming specific pieces of gear. Like I think in New Canaan, you're able to catch like lodestone fragments out of the water. So that is a tremendous boon if you're trying to get as many lodestone if you're low on lodestone fragments and you want to catch as many as possible. That's a fantastic way to do it. So do not dismiss the mud waders. They can be very helpful if you're trying to target farm specific pieces of junk. The other thing that you get at level 10 is called the Lucky Fishing Hat. The Lucky Fishing Hat not only makes it easier for you to catch rare fish, I'm not going to talk about that system. The rare fish are a whole other thing. But you do get an XP bonus whenever you are wearing the Lucky Fishing Hat. So if you're trying to grind your XP as fast as possible, you definitely want to be wearing the Lucky Fishing Hat whenever you're doing so. Also remember, you want to be using the tackle box because it makes it faster to catch those fishes. The fishes will not fight you as long during those rounds. At level 12, we don't care about that perk, but at level 15, this is a very important perk for those of you who are maybe terrified of the water. And I'm not going to do any spoiling of, throughout the game, but there is a certain underwater creature in one of the areas that this level 15 perk works on. So that creature will not be hostile to you whenever you enter its pond. So this can be very helpful if you're trying to gather resources down in the reservoir. This perk will make that creature not hostile to you. Those of you who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't, well, spoiler alert. So the fishing can be very useful to level up. Unfortunately, there's no level 20 perk for fishing. I don't know when the developers are ever going to get around to adding in that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe it'd be awesome to get like, bait, being cheaper or something. I don't fucking know. But there should definitely be a really, really good level 20 fishing perk. But as it stands now, I got my fishing up to level 15 and I stopped. I'm probably going to do that last because, again, there's no reason to get to level 20 in fishing because there's no perk at level 20 that I really care about. But yeah, that's how you do fishing. It's just going to be one of those things that you have to grind. You do get quite a lot of XP for it, especially if you're wearing Kylie, and if fishing is your lowest one and you're wearing the Pet Rock, along with using the Lucky Fishing Hat, you get a couple hundred XP for fishing fish. You do get a lot less XP for fishing junk, but you get a few hundred XP for fishing fish. So you should max out your fishing relatively quickly. I think I did the math, and you only need a couple hundred fish in order to max out your fishing with all the gear on. So yeah, it's very, very handy. Also, if you're in a multiplayer server and you have somebody in your party who already has their fishing up to level 10, they can make you a lucky fishing hat or a tackle box, and you can use that even from level 1. There's no level requirement on any of the gear. So even if you are level 1 and your friend is already maxed out on fishing or whatever, they can loan you their equipment to make the process easier. Keep that in mind. So that's how fishing works. Again, it's going to be one of those things you have to grind out. It should not take that long. I mean, if you were really target farming it, it should just take you a few hours. But yeah. Okay, that should be all the information that is relevant to leveling up in Abiotic Factor. I don't anticipate that this video should ever remain outdated unless the developers either remove some of these exploits or they add new ones into the game. But unless they add in some kind of exploit for leveling up blunt or sharp melee, I can't imagine this video becoming irrelevant. But in the event that it does, if I feel up to it, I can totally unlist this video and add in something updated to kind of patch things over. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was a bit more verbose and longer than I thought. I think we're up to 50 minutes now. But hopefully the information should be relevant to some of you guys, and if it helps at least a few of you leveling up easier in Abiotic Factor, I'll be very, very happy with myself. So thank you guys for watching. If you stuck here to the end, and I hope you guys all have a very, very nice day.